Not too many series have been around for as long as Final Fantasy. It is now an industry giant featuring cutting-edge graphics and cinematics. But it did not used to be that way. Prior to the PS1, it was all about crisp pixel art, which really shined when using a CRT TV. When the series first hit the Sony PlayStation, it struck a home run with Final Fantasy VII. It was beloved by many, and it is often looked at as the series' best. But, for many, it felt like a huge departure from the classic fantasy setting that the series was known for. On top of that, pixel art was replaced by polygonal blocks on top of crafted images. The game still looked beautiful, most of the time. But the series changed, drastically. Then, in the year 2000, we finally got Final Fantasy IX, a game that returned to the series' roots. Odin here. I finally played Final Fantasy IX and I freaking loved it. I was glued to the game for weeks. I can really see why this game gets so much praise, and honestly, it holds up to this very day. It's that good. Final Fantasy IX easily sits on the mantle of my favorites, and I cannot believe I had not played this game until over 25 years past the initial release. I have atoned for my crimes, and it is time to share why this game is so special. All footage is captured on PC via Steam, and visuals have been enhanced using the Moguri mod. Mods used are displayed on the right, and the link to the mod website is in the description below. So, are you interested in my thoughts about Final Fantasy IX? I'm going to be discussing the entire game. Spoilers are on the table. Now, time to trance because I'm just getting started. Let's get on with it! Final Fantasy IX was the last mainline Final Fantasy game on the Sony PlayStation before SquareSoft went to the cinematic Final Fantasy X for the Sony PlayStation 2. Just a few years prior, Final Fantasy VII revolutionized the series by jumping into 3D space, but it lacked the aesthetic that the series was known for. It was still great. It was damn near phenomenal. But the true fantasy setting was missed. So, what did SquareSoft do? They doubled down with Final Fantasy VIII by bringing another futuristic setting surrounding war, trauma, and the outcome of conflict. Where was that true fantasy setting? Was that setting over for the franchise? I imagine many felt alienated. Then, the 9th installment released at the tail end of the PlayStation's lifecycle. And it sold poorly. Well, in comparison. If you compare the sales to Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, it did not sell nearly as well. But it built upon what those games had done, while also going back to the series' roots. It was a true return to form. Most players who did not bounce off the less gritty tone, visually, it ended up being one of the most endeared games in the entire franchise. For many, this is their favorite game. This is like the Final Fantasy VI of the Sony PlayStation era. Narratively, it stands as one of the most engaging stories I have ever experienced. From the very beginning, it is not hard to feel the charm this game gives off, and the prologue does not disappoint either. It is damn near one of the best intros in Final Fantasy. Okay, stating Final Fantasy IX's intro is one of the very best is a bold statement, but it absolutely got me engaged pretty darn fast, and that is all because of how it introduces you to the main cast. After an initial cutscene where you see a girl on a boat in the middle of a storm, with as little context as possible, the game then sends you over to the main character Zidane with his gang of miscreants called Tantalus. At first, this just seems like your usual old gang of thieves, but this gang has freaking soul! And the first job of the day is to kidnap the princess. This is all going to take place during a play that Tantalus is performing for the Queen of Alexandria, Braun. Well, you got my attention. Immediately, the game transitions to another point of view where you take control of a small yet klutzy black mage who is the absolute best. What's his name? Well, you'll find out soon enough. Oh, it's VIII, and there's Moogles too. The game transitions back to Tantalus and the play starts. You perform a good old joust, pro tip, do it perfect and you will feel rich. And then you arrive in front of a mysterious hooded girl, which Zidane chases all around the castle premises. The chaos that ensues during this part doesn't stop either. It swaps over to our actual knight in shining armor, Steiner. He leads the Knights of Pluto, which is a humorous and inept group of 9 knights. His task is to find the princess, so he searches around the castle frantically, eventually leading himself into the kitchen and... Well, you find out who this person is later. Finally, Steiner finds Zidane and Garnet running circles around each other on a nearby tower. This leads to an incredible cutscene where she soon reveals that she wants to get kidnapped by Zidane. Well, that was easy. Steiner is not having that, so he barges in, and he tries to stop you by initiating a fight. His dedication is admirable. He then loses the fight to Oglops coming off Blank's armor, driving Steiner into an absolute fear frenzy. Like I said, they're inept. The prologue could end with them getting away right here, but in standard Final Fantasy IX flair, it continues with everyone, including Steiner, going above deck where they all improv the play, which ends in Garnet getting fake stabbed. And Steiner believes it. There's that charm. Steiner, in his chivalrous attitude, is dedicated to getting the princess back, so he fights again. Oh yeah, Vivi and the rat get caught too, so they join the fun. Mid-fight, Steiner screams a Monty Python reference, concluding in another loss where the ship goes into the air. But Braun certainly can't have that. She needs the princess, for plot reasons. So, what does she do? She sends a bomb to destroy the entire ship while they are on it. Yeah, she's psycho. Kinda reminds you of someone, huh? This leads to a fight with the bomb and Steiner in the middle of the air while the ship is locked down by chains. The best part about this fight is that Steiner doesn't even notice the bomb, like, at all. It's so silly, and after a few turns, the bomb does explode, sending the Prima Vista into the forest nearby. In these final moments, Garnet gets a last look at Alexandria and her mother before it fades to black. These initial moments of Final Fantasy IX is why I find it to be a damn near phenomenal intro to a video game. You get so much character development as well as world building, and this is all within a short time frame. Each moment is masterfully crafted, and it's just so charming. We get introduced to half of the entire main cast. We learn Zidane is a hopeless romantic that also loves to be a figurative knight in shining armor. We get introduced to Vivi, a klutzy little kid who can't quite control himself. Then you have Steiner, who is a literal knight in shining armor, but also tries to be there for the princess at all moments, even to a major fault. And finally, Garnet, our wonderful princess who actually wants to get kidnapped. Oh, and another detail, every plot-centric character in Alexandria is designed to look as if they were part of a circus. I dig that. This is all the first 2 hours of the video game. That's quite a lot for just 2 hours. This is all leading into a narrative that is absolutely wonderful from start to finish. Okay, spoilery section of the video. This is a 25-year-old game, and if you want to know the definitive answer to, is the story good and is this game worth it? Yes. I don't know why you're here. Buy the game, play the game now. The narrative journey of Final Fantasy IX really is an absolute banger of a story. I can definitely see why tons of people loved and continue to love this game. As soon as the prologue ends, the game never quite lets off the gas. And it does not take long to notice that the game's more whimsical nature is just a blanket covering an intense and dark story. But somehow, the game manages to balance dark themes while also being upbeat. It's quite impressive. Right after the game's initial prologue, you end up in a place underneath the mist that is aptly named Evil Forest. Well, this place can't be that bad, right? Okay, maybe the forest was truly evil, but that's because of the mist. And, sorry, blank. So, what exactly is the mist? Well, it's a dense fog that manipulates creatures and plants into malevolent creatures that want to end your life. Yeah, your standard stuff. And because of the mist, every civilization needs to live above it or face severe consequences. Nobody exactly likes to live in fear of their neighbor going psycho at any given moment. After several story beats, a kidnapping, and several boss fights, the game does eventually end up in Lindblum, where I gotta say, it's a wild choice just to set beasts on your inhabitants for sport. You know, I don't think I would ever want to live in a city where the local government unleashes beasts onto the city streets. The Festival of the Hunt, it's a wild narrative choice. It was one of the most video gamey things to do, and I mean really, what the heck? And as silly as this part was, I enjoyed every second of it. Of course, the silly moment is then counteracted with an intense story beat where you help fight against the nearby Alexandrian invasion of Burmecia. Oh yeah, Mommy is a evil lady if we forgot. Burmecia and the plot that surrounds this event is gripping from a story perspective. Not only does one of the main characters have to see everyone die around her, she has to experience it twice. You also end up fighting Steiner's comrade Beatrix and get introduced to the game's central villain, Kuja. Okay. All these events, including the prologue, are just in Disc 1. What? The entire game is filled to the brim with these intense, fun, silly, and downright depressing moments. One of the most impactful segments of the game was at the Black Mage Village. None of the Black Mages understand what dying means, but we, the players, do. And coming to terms with one's own life and what that means just hits very hard. Now, back to Alexandria and Braun. Honestly, I didn't expect Queen Braun to go to the lakes that she actually did. She wanted everything. And the fact that her thirst for power was never quite quenched to the point that she was willing to sacrifice her own daughter? Damn. Braun was a great antagonist. She served as the ultimate motive for Garnet and her entire character development. It was phenomenal. Seeing her struggles surrounding her mother, finding out she wasn't even her true daughter, and then Zidane supporting her actions the entire way. Chef's kiss. And speaking of Zidane, the world of Terra. The second half of Final Fantasy IX is freaking wild. Finding out about the twin world Terra, genomes, Garland, and Kuja's true purpose is honestly pretty insane. It's a lot to take in, and then learning Zidane served as the initial device to end Gaia and the inhabitants of the world via the mist was a plot thread I did not expect at all. I knew the mist was bad, but not in that way. Then you have the dungeon called Pandemonium, great music by the way, where it was all about Zidane coming to terms with his true self. I loved this. The mist's true purpose was phenomenal story writing. The mist being a byproduct of the Aoife tree and being part of a soul filtering process enacted by Garland was very interesting. By filtering the souls of the world away from Gaia and into Terra, this would lead to his world not ending and the people inhabiting Gaia dying instead. I gotta say, that weight is pretty heavy. And that is why Garland is an android. Only soulless Throwbots can handle that, and finding out the mist is just trapped souls and the emotional weight of the lingering souls being the reason for the aggression and violence was one of the best things to learn in the video game. Braun made sense. Zidane and Kuja's purpose made sense. Everything made sense. Final Fantasy IX and the entire story surrounding the mist is debatably one of the best stories in the series. Of course, the story would not have felt as impactful as it did without the main cast. The main cast of Final Fantasy IX is peak. The synergy between each and every character, besides one, is near perfect. You have Zidane. He is a phenomenal protagonist. His attitude is always positive, and when he hits his low, it is very freaking low. The sheer weight of how it felt to be a Geno was damn near tangible. I felt bad for him, but his will to carry on and not give in to his own sorrow just shined heroic personality. Then you have the princess. Garnet and her journey to becoming the queen is so fascinating. From leaving Alexandria, witnessing her mother committing genocide, her mother's eventual death, and finally stepping up as the leader of Alexandria, this all led to her own set of doubts that she eventually overcame. I don't think there is much characters that can top that. Okay, Steiner. Steiner is the comic relief that was so appreciated. His attitude and unwavering resolve to defend the princess is so damn charming. From the very beginning, I understood his character, and not once did it ever change. Every dialogue and moment where he was on screen felt like it was the break from the tension and sorrow that Final Fantasy IX is. Then we have Aiko. At first, she just sounded like the trademark Final Fantasy child character. I was wrong. Understanding the backstory of her character, being the last surviving summoner, and being alone for so long, hit hard. But when Mog protects her, revealing that they were an Eidolon the entire time was so awesome. Second that with a moment where she did not feel alone because Princess Garnet was also from her tribe. That boat scene makes a lot of sense now. And ultimately helping summon Alexander, which by the way, was by far one of the coolest moments in the entire game. And then we have Vivi. This character is the absolute best. His story of understanding what he truly is and coming to terms with that, much like Zidane, was a damn good contrast. When he goes to Black Mage Village and starts to see that these people eventually won't live, and then him also coming to terms with his life, it's so deep. Also, by the end of the game, he becomes a walking nuke, and that alone is amazing. Now, the honorable mentions. It's not that I don't like Kina or Amarant, it's just that I felt like they did not feel as impactful as the rest of the cast. Kina served as secondary comic relief for me throughout the entire story. One of the funnier moments was when Kina got married to Vivi, but that was within an active time event. More on that later. I could have skipped that. Then you have their obsession with food. Kina's unwavering obsession with food was her highlight as well, because she will literally eat anything and everything. Luckily, this obsession does pay dividends. Last but not least, Amarant. I don't have much to say about this guy. I don't know if I'm alone here, but this guy feels as if he was thrown in as a mandatory 8th character to fulfill the requirement of having 2 characters for each Guardian of Terra. He's edgy, and that's really it. But even for not being one of my favorite characters, he still has some moments. Which is why I believe Final Fantasy IX's cast is so great. Even the worst aren't that bad. Sure, Amarant is pretty bottom of the barrel in comparison to the rest of the cast, but he gets his redeeming moments. The biggest reason for that is this game's active time event system. Active time events are such a neat idea. They are bite-sized cutscenes that allow you to see events elsewhere that are happening at the same time as the current moment in the story. Some of the game's memorable and silly moments are during these active time events. Amarant gets his time during these moments. Sure, he still could have been better, but at least there were funny moments to see. Also, using the term active time is a great touch, considering that it is a call-out to the series' main staple battle system, active time battle. Combat and progression systems throughout the Final Fantasy series change in some capacity. Starting with Final Fantasy IV, the games went from a pure turn-based formula to a pseudo-turn-based system called Active Time Battle. This system was beloved, and it stuck around for 6 games before the series decided to go back to classic turn-based with Final Fantasy X. What is Active Time Battle? Well, you have an ATB gauge that builds and eventually tops off. When it is ready, you can perform an attack, skill, or cast magic. Standard stuff. But unlike most games before it, each character has their own role or class. This is different from games like Final Fantasy V, where you can mix and match jobs, and is more akin to something like Final Fantasy IV, where each character had their own identity. I liked this approach because Final Fantasy VII had the materia system and Final Fantasy VIII used junctioning. This further encompassed the design philosophy of how Final Fantasy IX went back to its roots. And depending on your combination of characters in your battle party, you could create your own playstyle. For me, my favorite party was Garnet, Vivi, Zidane, and Freya, whereas others could switch it up with Eiko, Zidane, Steiner, and Vivi. The flexibility of these characters and their playstyles really amp up this game. Zidane is your classic thief. He gains access to thief skills like Steal, which you use a lot by the way, and later Mug, whereas Steiner is your classic knight or paladin. Then you have Freya, who fulfills the Dragoon archetype and gains access to this wonderful skill called Dragon's Crest. And fun fact, killing dragons will power up this skill and allow for it to do 9,999 damage every single time. But there are also magic-based characters like Vivi, Eiko, and Garnet. Vivi does elemental damage via black magic and ends up being a walking nuke by the end of the game, as I said earlier. Then, there are summoners like Eiko and Garnet. Each of them offers completely different summons and skills which are vastly different from one another. Eiko's summons offer more utility, whereas Garnet's offer straight damage. Last, but not least, Kina and Amaranth. Kina is the blue mage who consumes enemies to gain their abilities or skills. She is quite strong if you take the time to gain blue magic. And, Amaranth is just another thief or ninja. Well, at least he can throw items. Each character also gains access to a trance. This is an enhanced state, and depending on the character, it will change what they can do. For instance, Zidane gets access to abilities like Die and enhanced attack power, whereas Vivi can perform 2 magic spells in a row. This reminded me of Terra and her trance from Final Fantasy VI, but now everyone has it. On top of archetypes, character skills, and trance, there are abilities that are gained via equipment. After each battle, you gain XP, gil, and AP. AP contributes to the bar on your equipment and eventually it will max out. After it is maxed, you gain that ability as a support ability permanently, and you can mix and match them via magic stones. That is very similar to Lumina in recent games like Expedition 33. Abilities bound to equipment do change, so it encourages trying different pieces of gear to see what support abilities you can gain. I love this system, because on top of having your own favorite party, you can mix and match these support abilities to make your party feel as diverse as possible. Second that with dungeons and bosses sometimes feeling vastly easier because of support abilities that were learned from equipment. It's a good kind of grind, but instead of grinding out levels, you can grind out skills or abilities. I loved this. Dungeons are a main staple in the Final Fantasy series. Each offers a theme, enemies, exploration, and a boss or two. Dungeons in Final Fantasy IX, to be quite honest, are not much different from past games. However, the design and backdrops alone make them worth it. One of my favorite dungeons was Ibsen's castle. This place was wacky. Everything was upside down and it encouraged a lot of exploration. Another favorite of mine was Fossil Rue. This was a nice change from past dungeons because there were gargants you could ride between rooms, and how this mix and matched made it feel like it was a small puzzle. It made finding each chest very engaging. Then you have the bosses. Each boss, thankfully, was fun. I actually enjoyed every single one. None of them were too easy or hard. Well, except for this one. Final Fantasy IX and the whimsical nature really shines within its dungeons. The designs really make the game stand out. Sometimes it felt like I was traversing a storybook. They are that wonderful, and pair that with experiencing world-class music designed by Nobuo Uematsu. I could probably make a video on every single mainline Final Fantasy, and not a single one will have gripes that pertain to its music. Final Fantasy IX is no exception. The variety within its soundtrack is amazing. There are upbeat themes, sad themes, silly themes, and themes that make you feel like there is impending doom. Nobuo Uematsu continues to impress me. Here are some examples of his amazing work. I really wish Nobuo could make music forever, and honestly, if his name is attached to a game, I know the soundtrack is going to be a bang. Shoot, even the game's Tetra Master theme is good. If it wasn't for Triple Triad, I would have bounced off Tetra Master. Triple Triad was and still is one of the best minigames in the entire series, and Tetra Master is a decent follow-up to the formula. Much like the former, it is cards on a board, and you choose your set of cards to play. Where the game changes it up is the board is larger and the layout is randomized. Plus, you got diagonal directions. That is where I started to not like it. One of my favorite aspects of Triple Triad was the simple yet addictive nature of the game. The loop felt perfected. This time around, I couldn't help to feel like it got a bit too much. Maybe that's a good thing. I just felt like it boiled down to random chance a ton more often than when I played Triple Triad. Tetramaster is still great, but perhaps it could have been better. But enough about cards and games. How is the side content? How does the game handle the rest of the side content? Final Fantasy IX and its side content elements are interesting. Technically, you could do them all from the very beginning of the game, but I personally did them in Disc 4. One minigame in particular is a requirement for some of the best weapons in the game, but also the game's superboss, Chocobo, Hot and Cold. Honestly, this minigame is not that bad. However, I am extremely thankful for high speed mode. I could have done this at normal speed, but that would have made the whole thing awful by making the entire loop much longer. So my PS1 players, if you needed therapy afterwards, I understand. But the main reason I tried Chocobo Hot and Cold is to fight the game's superboss, Ozma. His HP is actually not that high, it's 55,535. But the rest of his mechanics are absolutely painful. He can manipulate turn order and is nigh impossible unless you power him down via another side quest called Friendly Monsters. After doing so, he becomes manageable, but still pretty painful. Final Fantasy IX's side content, especially considering its time, is pretty good. Sans the grindy nature of Chocobo Hot and Cold, it is a nice set of quests to do alongside the main plot, and then eventually the final boss. The final moments of Final Fantasy IX are among the most interesting and wacky moments in a JRPG. I could not do a video about this game without talking about the last few battles or moments. It's wacky. Heavy spoilers. 3, 2, 1, alright. After the final moments on Terra, the game loves to throw this curveball by Kuja finally achieving trance. In simple anime fashion, the game likes to do this, but there's an even bigger threat the entire time. You go into Memoria, fight Kuja, win, and the game could have ended right there. It would have been wonderful. Somehow, the trope of "there's always a bigger threat" comes at high velocity with Necron. He is by far the wackiest final boss I have ever played, but also one of the coolest final bosses. He is quite literally the reason behind everything. He is an actual divine being, and the music and moments leading up to this fight will be ingrained in my memory forever. Your team giving up their life force for the final 4 party members of your choosing was pretty great. Also, Grand Cross. Memoria and the moments leading up to this fight sold the game for me. It is among my favorite final dungeons in a JRPG. So, Final Fantasy IX. This game is a fantastic swan song of a title before the series hit the PlayStation 2. It bolsters the incredible combat system, active time battle, an incredible story, music that makes you feel emotional, and top it all off with wonderful characters. I'm glad I finally got to play this masterpiece. I really wanted to hold out for the rumored remake, but I have no regrets with this one. The side content can drag, but the best part is that it's completely optional. All the main content is well paced, and when it is over, you have that nice feeling inside. That great feeling of, damn, that was a phenomenal video game. Have you played Final Fantasy IX? Did you beat Ozma? Did you get Excalibur II? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get that conversation going. And if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button while you're at it. It will help yours truly, and when new videos drop, just like this one, you will be the first to see it. Odin here. Have a ZANTETSUKEN day. Peace out.